The massive screens in the Galactic Council's observation room lit up with images of a blue-green planet. Dr. Blue stood before the council members, his tall form casting a shadow across the data displays. His four eyes blinked in sequence as he pointed to the swirling clouds covering much of the planet's surface. As you can see, honored council members, we have discovered yet another developing world, he said, his voice filled with dismissal. The dominant species calls their planet Earth, and themselves humans. The council chamber remained quiet as images of human cities, vehicles, and technology appeared on the screens. Dr. Blue continued his presentation, gesturing at the readings with three of his upper limbs while holding his datapad with the fourth. Their technology is primitive by our standards. They still use combustion engines, rely heavily on fossil fuels, and their space exploration has barely reached their own moon. He paused, allowing a small laugh to escape. They're practically still in their cradle. One of the council members, an elderly female with silvery skin, leaned forward. What about their defensive capabilities? Dr. Blue pulled up a new set of images showing Earth's military forces, nothing that could challenge our supremacy. Their weapons are projectile-based, using chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Their most advanced missiles would be easily intercepted by our shield technology. The head of the council, a massive being known simply as the First, raised a hand. Tell us about their world itself. What conditions do they live in? Here, Dr. Blue's expression shifted to one of amusement. This is perhaps the most fascinating part. These humans live in what we would consider a toxic soup. He displayed atmospheric readings. Their atmosphere is roughly 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen, with various other gases making up the remainder. The oxygen levels alone would be considered hazardous on most developed worlds. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the council chamber. Living in such high oxygen concentrations seemed impossible to many of the gathered aliens. Furthermore, Dr. Blue continued, their planet experiences extreme temperature variations, powerful storms, and regular exposure to harmful radiation from their sun. They live in these conditions without any form of environmental protection. It's quite remarkable they've survived at all. The First leaned back in his chair, all six of his eyes narrowing in thought. Yet they have developed civilization in these conditions. A primitive one, yes, Dr. Blue confirmed. They've adapted to their harsh environment. But this adaptation has clearly stunted their technological growth. Their materials and methods are crude, designed to withstand these brutal conditions rather than rise above them. Another council member spoke up. Could they be useful to the galactic community? Dr. Blue shook his head. Their technology would be of no use to us. It's too basic, too crude. Their methods of construction and energy generation are centuries behind ours. Even their medical knowledge is in its infancy. They still suffer from numerous diseases we eliminated millennia ago. The First stood, towering over the assembly. Then the question becomes, what do we do with them? Given their primitive state and the strategic location of their solar system, Dr. Blue suggested, I recommend we proceed with standard protocol for underdeveloped worlds, a swift show of force, followed by integration into the community under our guidance. The council members exchanged looks. The First nodded slowly. Your assessment seems thorough, Dr. Blue. Prepare a detailed invasion plan. Given their level of technology, I assume this will be a simple operation. Dr. Blue smiled confidently. Indeed, our environmental suits are far superior to anything they could imagine. Their weapons will be useless against our shields. I estimate complete surrender within their planetary week. Very well, the First declared. Begin preparations immediately. We'll show these humans the true meaning of advanced civilization. As the council members filed out of the chamber, Dr. Blue began closing his presentation. He glanced one last time at the image of Earth, spinning slowly on the main screen. Such a primitive world, he thought, with its swirling clouds and vast oceans. How could creatures from such a harsh environment ever hope to resist the might of the galactic community? Little did he know, Those very conditions he dismissed would soon teach him and the entire council a lesson about underestimating humanity and the power of evolution in extreme conditions. The alien fleet appeared in Earth's orbit on a quiet Tuesday morning. Their massive ships cast shadows over the clouds below, their metallic surfaces gleaming in the sunlight. Commander Gray stood on the bridge of the lead ship, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. "Begin the landing sequence," he ordered, his voice confident. "Remember, this is a simple operation. These humans have never seen true power." The landing crews rushed to their ships, putting on their environmental suits. The suits were thin and lightweight, designed with advanced materials that could withstand the harshest conditions in the galaxy. Or so they thought. "Sir," one of the technicians called out, "the atmospheric readings are unusual." Commander Gray walked over to the display. "What do you mean, unusual?" "The moisture content is higher than we expected. And these electrical storms," the technician pointed to several red spots on the screen. "It doesn't matter," Commander Gray said firmly. "Our equipment is far superior to anything on this backward planet. Proceed with the landing." The first wave of ships descended through Earth's atmosphere. As they dropped through the cloud layer, the pilots noticed something strange. Their instruments began showing small errors. Nothing major, just slight miscalculations in their readings. "Minor interference from the primitive communication systems," one pilot reported. "Nothing to worry about." The landing ships touched down in a large field outside a human city. Their sensors had chosen this location for its strategic value and lack of immediate human presence. As the doors opened, the alien soldiers stepped out onto Earth's soil for the first time. At first, everything seemed normal. The soldiers moved in formation, their weapons ready, but within minutes, things began to change. "Sir," one soldier called out, wiping at his visor, "my display is getting foggy." Another soldier reported similar problems, then another. The moisture in Earth's air was condensing on their equipment in ways their engineers hadn't anticipated. Commander Gray watched from orbit as the landing party spread out. "Status report," he demanded. "All units are in position," came the reply. "But, sir, we're getting some strange readings from the environmental suits." The alien soldiers continued their advance, but more problems kept appearing. The joints in their suits began to make squeaking sounds. Their weapons' power cells showed unexpected fluctuations. "This moisture is everywhere," one squad leader reported. "It's getting into everything." Back on the command ship, Dr. Blue rushed onto the bridge. "Commander, we need tow." "Not now, Doctor," Commander Gray interrupted. "We're in the middle of our landing operation." "But sir, I've been reviewing the atmospheric data. The combination of oxygen and water vapor is showing concerning effects on our—" A sudden burst of static cut through their communication channel. On the surface, one of the soldiers' suits had completely locked up, its joints frozen in place. "Help," the soldier called out. "My suit won't move." More reports started flooding in. The supposedly superior alien materials were reacting to Earth's atmosphere in unexpected ways. The high oxygen content was causing rapid oxidation of their advanced alloys. The constant moisture was seeping into systems designed for dry, controlled environments. "Sir," a technician called out, panic in his voice. "We're losing contact with multiple ground units." Commander Gray watched in disbelief as more and more red warning lights appeared on his display. How could this be happening? Their technology was centuries ahead of Earth's. Their materials were supposed to be indestructible. In the field below, the alien soldiers struggled with their failing equipment. Some of their weapons had stopped working entirely. Others showed dangerous power fluctuations. The supposedly advanced environmental suits were proving less and less effective by the minute. "Fall back to the ships," the ground commander ordered. But even their ships were showing signs of stress. The landing gear had started to corrode, and the engine housings were collecting moisture in critical areas. As the chaos unfolded, Dr. Blue stood quietly at the back of the bridge, clutching his datapad. His worst fears were being confirmed. They had made a terrible mistake in their assumptions about Earth's primitive environment. The invasion had barely begun, and already their superior technology was being humbled by something as simple as Earth's atmosphere. Captain Smith of the Earth Defense Force sat in his underground command center, watching the alien invasion through satellite feeds. What he saw made him smile. "Sir," one of his officers reported, "the aliens are having some serious problems with their equipment. Should we attack?" "No," Captain Smith replied, leaning back in his chair. "Let's watch them fight our air first." Above ground, the alien forces were facing a crisis. Their second wave of troops had landed, but things were getting worse by the hour. The morning dew had turned into a light rain, and that's when the real trouble began. One alien soldier tried to fire his energy weapon at a test target. Instead of the usual bright beam, only sparks came out. "My weapon is malfunctioning," he shouted into his radio. Similar reports came in from all over the landing zone. Commander Gray's voice crackled over their communications. "What is happening down there? Why aren't you advancing?" The ground commander looked at his troops. Their once shiny suits were already showing signs of rust at the joints. The rain was getting heavier, and every drop seemed to cause more problems. "Sir," he reported back, "the human world it's eating our equipment. The water falls from the sky constantly. The air itself seems to attack our metals." In the command ship, Dr. Blue rushed around his laboratory, testing samples and running calculations. No, he muttered. "How did we miss this?" He pulled up images of human vehicles and buildings. They were made of simple materials: steel, concrete, rubber. Nothing special. But these materials had been developed over centuries to withstand Earth's harsh conditions. "Commander Gray," Dr. Blue called over the ship's communication system, "we have a serious problem. Earth's atmosphere is like nothing we've encountered before." "Explain quickly," Gray demanded, watching more red warning lights appear on his screens. "The combination of oxygen and water creates a perfect storm of corrosion. Our advanced alloys, they're too pure, too perfect. They can't handle this constant attack from the environment." On the ground, things were getting even worse. A squad of alien soldiers had taken shelter in an abandoned human warehouse. They watched in amazement as their advanced suits deteriorated, while the simple human building stood strong against the rain. "Look at this," one soldier said, pointing to a rusty human truck. "Their primitive vehicles are designed for this. They don't fight the corrosion. They expect it and plan for it." The rain grew heavier. Lightning flashed across the sky, and thunder rolled over the landing zone. Several alien ships reported electrical problems after nearby lightning strikes. "Sir," a technician reported to Commander Gray, "our ship's outer hulls are showing microscopic damage from the atmospheric conditions. If this continues..." "If this continues, what?" Gray demanded. "If this continues, we might not be able to take off again." The news spread through the alien forces like wildfire. Their supposedly superior technology was failing them. Their advanced materials were breaking down. Even their backup systems were showing signs of damage. Captain Smith watched all of this through his monitors. Next to him, his chief engineer studied the readings they were getting from the alien equipment. "It's fascinating," the engineer said. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's all designed for controlled environments. They never expected to fight in what we consider normal weather." "Normal for us," Captain Smith replied, "but apparently extreme for them." He picked up his phone to call his superiors. "I think it's time to show them what real Earth engineering can do." Back in the alien landing zone, a soldier looked up at the dark clouds gathering overhead. More lightning flashed, and he could hear the metal in his suit creaking. "Maybe," he said to his squad mate, "we should have studied their environment more carefully before calling them primitive." His friend didn't answer. His suit's communication system had just shorted out from the rain. Above them all, Commander Gray stared at his failing invasion force, a cold realization setting in. They had gravely underestimated Earth, not because of its military might, but because of something far more basic, its very nature. Dr. Blue's laboratory aboard the command ship had turned into a scene of chaos. Damaged equipment from Earth's surface covered every table. Under his microscope, a piece of their most advanced armor was literally dissolving. "Impossible," he whispered, but the evidence was right in front of him. He turned to his computer and started typing frantically. "Commander Gray," he called over the ship's communication system, "you need to see this immediately." When the commander arrived, his usual confident stride was gone. The last 12 hours had destroyed his faith in their superior technology. "What have you found?" Gray asked, looking at the scattered equipment. Dr. Blue pointed to his screen. "We made a terrible mistake. Look at these readings of Earth's atmosphere over the past day." The screen showed graphs and numbers. "See this." Dr. Blue pointed to one line. "Earth's oxygen levels are higher than anything our species has evolved with. Combined with the water vapor, it creates the perfect formula for destroying our technology." "But how do the humans survive this?" Gray asked, watching another piece of their equipment slowly turn brown with rust. "That's the brilliant part," Dr. Blue said, pulling up images of human technology. "Look at this simple human car. See how they use layers of paint and protective coatings. Their metals are alloyed specifically to resist corrosion. They don't try to avoid the problem. They embrace it and plan for it." On the surface, more alien soldiers were reporting breathing problems. Their air filters were clogging with moisture, and the high oxygen levels were making them dizzy. "My suit can't handle this atmosphere," one soldier reported, his voice shaky. "It's like breathing pure energy." Commander Gray watched the reports flood in. "How many soldiers are affected?" "All of them," Dr. Blue replied. "Our environmental suits were designed to filter out harmful substances, but we never considered that what's harmful to us is normal for humans. Their bodies have evolved to thrive in these conditions." A loud alarm interrupted them. On the main screen, they watched as one of their landed ships began to sink into the mud. The constant rain had softened the ground, and their landing gear was corroding quickly. "The humans," Dr. Blue continued, "they build everything to withstand these conditions. Their roads, their buildings, their vehicles, all designed to survive in what we would consider extreme conditions." Commander Gray walked to the window, looking down at Earth. "You're telling me we invaded a planet where the very air and water fight against us?" "Exactly," Dr. Blue said. "And there's more. Look at this analysis of human blood." The screen showed microscopic images of human blood cells. Their bodies process this high oxygen environment naturally. They've evolved in it. For them, this is perfect. For us, it's like being in a constant state of oxidative stress. Outside the ship, another storm was building. Lightning flashed across the sky, and thunder rolled over the landing zone. More equipment failures were reported every minute. "Commander," a soldier called over the radio, "we found something interesting. The humans, they use simple rubber gaskets and seals on their equipment. Nothing fancy, but they work perfectly in this environment. Our advanced synthetic seals are falling apart, but their rubber just keeps working." Dr. Blue nodded. "That's exactly my point. We thought our technology was superior because it was more advanced. But in this environment, simpler is better. The humans have spent centuries developing materials that work with their atmosphere, not against it." Commander Gray sat heavily in a chair, watching more red warning lights appear on his displays. "How long until our ships are too damaged to leave?" "At this rate," Dr. Blue checked his calculations, "maybe 2 days. The corrosion is accelerating. Even our space-grade hull materials are showing signs of stress." A flash of lightning lit up the room, followed by a deep rumble of thunder. Both aliens looked out at Earth's stormy skies. "We didn't invade a primitive planet," Commander Gray said quietly. "We invaded a world that turns everything it touches into dust. Everything except the humans and their primitive technology." Dr. Blue nodded. and they're just sitting there, watching us fall apart in what they call mild weather. Major Tom stood in front of his troops, a slight smile on his face. Behind him, a line of simple military vehicles waited, tanks, trucks, and armored personnel carriers. Nothing fancy, just solid Earth engineering. "Listen up," he called out to his soldiers. "The aliens are in trouble. Their fancy technology can't handle our atmosphere. Now it's our turn to show them what Earth-made machines can do." The soldiers grinned. They had watched for days as the alien invasion force struggled with the basic elements of Earth's environment. Now, with most of the alien equipment failing, it was time to act. "Mount up," Major Tom ordered. "And remember, keep it simple. No fancy tricks needed." The rain continued to pour as Earth's military forces began to move. The rubber tires of their vehicles gripped the muddy ground easily. Their diesel engines, sealed against moisture and built to work in all weather, rumbled steadily. In the alien camp, chaos was spreading. Most of their energy weapons had stopped working completely. Their ships' engines were showing dangerous levels of corrosion. Even their communication systems were failing in the constant moisture. Enemy forces approaching. An alien lookout called, his voice crackling through static. Commander Gray watched from orbit as human vehicles appeared on his screens. "How are they moving so easily in this weather?" he demanded. Dr. Blue, still in his lab, had the answer. "Look at their vehicles," he said. "Simple internal combustion engines. Mechanical systems, weatherproof electronics. They're not fighting the environment. They're working with it." The first shots of the battle weren't even close combat. The aliens watched in shock as human tanks fired simple metal shells. No energy beams, no plasma, just solid projectiles. Their failing shield systems couldn't handle such basic attacks. "Fall back," the alien ground commander ordered. But their vehicles wouldn't start. The moisture had seeped into their power systems, and their anti-gravity units were dead. Major Tom led the advance in his command vehicle, an old-fashioned Jeep with a reinforced frame and all-terrain tires. "Look at them scramble," he said to his driver. "All that advanced technology, and they can't handle a little rain." The human forces moved forward steadily. Their radios, protected by simple waterproof casings, worked perfectly. Their weapons, based on gunpowder and metal, fired reliably despite the weather. An alien soldier tried to fire back with his advanced rifle. It sparked uselessly in his hands. "How are their primitive weapons still working?" he shouted in frustration. "Because they're not primitive," his commander replied. "They're perfect for this world." Major Tom's forces surrounded the alien landing zone. Their tanks took position on high ground, tracks gripping the mud easily. Their infantry moved forward under cover of armored vehicles, each soldier comfortable in their weatherproof gear. "Sir," one of Major Tom's officers reported, "the aliens are retreating. But most of their ships can't take off. The rain has damaged their launch systems." In orbit, Commander Gray watched the disaster unfold. His ground forces were being rounded up by human military units. Their superior technology lay useless in the mud, while Earth's primitive machines worked perfectly. "Dr. Blue," he called over the ship's comm system, "what's happening to our forces' armor?" "It's dissolving," Dr. Blue replied simply. "The combination of rain, oxygen, and temperature changes is destroying our advanced materials. But look at the humans' equipment. Basic steel and aluminum, painted and sealed. So simple, yet so effective in these conditions." On the ground, Major Tom stood watching as alien soldiers surrendered. Their once bright environmental suits were now stained with rust. Their weapons were dead. Their ships sat silent in the rain. "Message from command," his radio operator said. "They want to know if we need reinforcements." Major Tom looked at the sky, where more rain clouds were gathering. Lightning flashed in the distance. "Tell them no," he replied. "Earth's atmosphere is doing most of the work for us. We just need to clean up what's left." The battle wasn't won with advanced tactics or superior firepower. It was one because humanity had spent centuries learning to survive and thrive in conditions that were, to the rest of the galaxy, unimaginably harsh. Earth's atmosphere had proven to be humanity's greatest ally, turning the aliens' invasion into a humiliating defeat. The Galactic Council chamber was silent as Dr. Blue presented his findings. The massive screens behind him showed images of their ruined equipment, corroded ships, and failed invasion force. Honored council members, Dr. Blue began, his voice heavy with humility. I stand before you to admit a grave error in our assessment of Earth and its people. The first leaned forward in his chair. Explain how we lost an entire invasion force to a primitive world. Dr. Blue touched his control pad, bringing up an image of Earth's atmosphere. What we thought was primitive is actually extraordinary. Earth's environment is unique in our known galaxy. He showed a video of their equipment failing in the rain. Next to it, he played footage of human machines working perfectly in the same conditions. Look at this simple human vehicle, he said, pointing to a truck driving through deep mud. We thought their combustion engines and metal bodies were primitive. We were wrong. They are perfect designs for their world. The council members watched as more images appeared. Alien ships grounded by corrosion, while human aircraft flew through storms. Alien weapons failing while human guns fired reliably in all weather. The truth is shocking, Dr. Blue continued. Humans have evolved in conditions we would consider extreme. Their planet's high oxygen levels, constant moisture, and temperature changes would kill most species in our council. He brought up a diagram of human biology. Their bodies process oxygen levels that would poison us. They drink water that would rust our machines. They thrive in temperature ranges that would stress our best environmental systems. One council member stood up. But their technology, it's so basic. No, Dr. Blue corrected. Their technology is incredibly advanced, not in complexity, but in durability. Look at this. He showed a microscope view of human steel. They add different metals to make alloys that resist rust. They use rubber that stays flexible in extreme cold and heat. Their electronics are sealed against moisture that would destroy our sensitive systems. The screens filled with images of Earth's cities. These structures, Dr. Blue explained, stand for hundreds of years in conditions that destroyed our ships in days. Their roads endure freezing, heating, and constant wear. Their bridges span massive gaps while bearing enormous weight and withstanding severe weather. Commander Gray, standing at the back of the chamber, stepped forward. Tell them about their weapons, he said quietly. Dr. Blue nodded. Their weapons are masterpieces of practical engineering. While our energy weapons failed in the rain, their simple projectile weapons kept working. Their tanks drove through mud that grounded our hover vehicles. Their communications never failed. The first raised his hand. Are you saying these humans are superior to us? No, Dr. Blue replied. I'm saying they are different. They evolved on a world that would kill most species in this council. Instead of making their environment suit them, they adapted to suit their environment. He showed final images. Human children playing in rain that had destroyed alien equipment, people breathing air that had overwhelmed alien filters, cars driving through storms that had grounded advanced spacecraft. We thought we were going to conquer a primitive world, Dr. Blue concluded. Instead, we found a species that has mastered one of the most hostile environments we've ever encountered. Their technology isn't primitive. It's perfectly adapted to conditions we never imagined possible. The council chamber remained quiet as the images faded. The first stood slowly. And what have we learned from this mistake? He asked. Dr. Blue's answer was simple. We learned that advanced doesn't always mean better. We learned that evolution in harsh conditions creates strength we never considered. Most importantly, we learned to never again judge a civilization by our standards alone. He touched his control pad one final time, showing Earth's cities gleaming in the sunlight after a storm. The humans don't just survive in their world, he said. They thrive in conditions that destroyed our best technology. Perhaps it's time we stopped viewing them as primitive and started learning from them instead. The council members looked at each other, realizing that their view of the galaxy would never be the same again. 6 months after the failed invasion, the Grand Meeting Hall of the United Nations was filled with both human and alien representatives. The first himself had come to Earth, wearing a specially designed environmental suit built using human engineering principles. "Your world continues to amaze us," the first said, addressing the assembled human leaders. "Even this simple building tells a story of incredible engineering." Captain Smith, now Earth's chief representative to the Galactic Council, smiled. "Simple is sometimes better," he said. "This building has stood for decades, through countless storms and seasons." Dr. Blue, wearing his new Earth-designed protection suit, stood at a podium displaying the results of joint research projects. "In just 6 months," he explained, "combining our advanced theories with Earth's practical engineering has led to incredible breakthroughs." On screens around the hall, images showed new spacecraft designs. They used traditional human materials, treated steel, aluminum alloys, and rubber seals, combined with alien technology. The ships could now operate in any environment, from Earth's harsh atmosphere to the vacuum of space. "But perhaps our greatest discovery," Dr. Blue continued, "was learning that humans have turned their world's hostile conditions into their greatest strength." Major Tom, sitting in the audience, nodded. His forces now trained alien military units in how to operate in extreme conditions. The aliens' energy weapons had been modified using Earth's weatherproofing techniques, making them finally reliable in any weather. "Earth's export business is booming," a human economic advisor reported. "Our primitive materials are now the most valuable resources in the galaxy. Everyone wants Earth-designed environmental protection." The first stood again. "We came to Earth thinking we would find a primitive world ready for conquest. Instead, we found teachers. Your species has mastered the art of surviving in conditions that would destroy most civilizations." Around the hall, examples of new joint projects were on display. Human car manufacturers were working with alien engineers to create vehicles that combined the best of both worlds. Earth's construction companies were teaching other species how to build structures that could last centuries in harsh environments. "The galaxy has changed," the first announced. "For too long, we judged advancement by how well we could avoid environmental challenges. Earth has shown us that true advancement means learning to work with our environment, not against it." Commander Gray, now the head of a new joint space fleet, stepped forward. "Our ships are being rebuilt using Earth-standard materials and designs. No more failing in rain or crumbling in storms. We're learning to be tough, like humans." The human representatives smiled at this. Their primitive world had become the galaxy's leader in practical engineering and environmental adaptation. Earth's factories were working overtime, producing specialized materials for dozens of alien worlds. "But it's not just about technology," Dr. Blue added. "We're learning about human biology too. Your bodies are incredibly efficient at processing oxygen, dealing with temperature changes, and fighting off environmental stress. You're teaching us how to be stronger." A young human engineer stood up to present the latest project, a new type of space station that could withstand any conditions. It used the same principles as Earth's ocean-going ships, designed to last for years in one of the most corrosive environments known. "The future is bright," the first concluded. "Together, we will create technology that works with nature instead of trying to overcome it. Earth has taught us that true advancement comes from adaptation, not isolation from our environment." As the meeting ended, Captain Smith walked with the first to look out over the city. A thunderstorm was approaching, lightning flashing in the distance. "Not too long ago, that storm would have terrified us," the first said. "Now, thanks to you, we understand that facing environmental challenges makes us stronger." Captain Smith watched as alien visitors walked among humans, their new Earth-designed environmental suits working perfectly in the rain that began to fall. "Welcome to Earth," he said simply. "Where what you call extreme, we call home." Above them, A new generation of spacecraft, built with both human and alien technology, flew through the storm without trouble. They were no longer advanced or primitive. They were simply right for their environment. Earth had taught the galaxy its greatest lesson. True strength comes not from avoiding challenges, but from learning to thrive within them.